So from my perspective as vice chairman of the organization, we have to come to a point, which we are not at that point yet, where these different divisions can co-collaborate and co-create proprietary strength together.
In your timeline and career graph, when you have planned to move and take, the decision-making role, then the current is also decision-making, but more of the execution. If you see the whole umbrella of Uflex, when have you planned that for yourself?
Uflex has always been a very professional-led organization, but with a very strong ownership component on the top, right? And that's always provided Uflex its own unique sort of core strength, where a lot of the passion, drive, technical expertise, but also a lot of, responsibility, being able to risk-taking ability. For me, I'll be honest with you, I have been working from day one, and people always laugh, but I've said this externally, I've said this internally. In fact, I was just saying this to our internal auditors the other day, and I kind of threw them off. But for me, I've always worked on the basis of eliminating my own position, right? Because I know that only way for me to grow, right? Only way for me to grow to whatever the next challenge for me will be, right? Will be to eliminate the role that I do today and to let either this role go to one other person or to several other people. Uflex will, chairman's whole goal will be to transition into, becoming a MLP, paralysis, Celsius, bioenzyme recycling expert, right? I mean, for him, I know that one of his missions is now to sort of solve this plastic problem as a whole, right? So the same professional, or if not better, environment that is today, but combine that with the same agility that we have today, the same flexibility, the same risk-taking appetite. My theory is only valid for people who want to grow. Don't want to grow, maintain, you shouldn't change anything, stay the same. And that's not a bad thing. It'll still last, but in 15, 20 years, you're gonna hit a wall, maybe sooner. For us, headquarters, I mean, it's, again, as we spoke in Nidhi earlier, right? It's about decentralized command. For me, what we're focused on, today we're in 9 global locations. Tomorrow, we can be in 12, we can be in 20, we can be in 30, whatever it is, right? Today, 50% of our revenue is outside of India. 50% of our revenue is inside of India. Over the next couple of years, you'll see, 70% of our revenue will be outside of India, 30% will be inside of India. Over the long run, our goal really will become, and it will happen, is that each country will contribute less than 10% to our overall revenue, including India, right? So eventually, we will come to a point where it really it wouldn't matter where headquarters is.
What are the 3 things which you would like to emulate from him? And which are the 2 things which you say, Dad, I'm really sorry, I do not agree with you here? Would you have the liberty to speak that out?
Me and my brother have big shoes to fill. Honestly, I'll confess to you, I have already given up. I know that I can never, I know that no matter how hard I work, he just outworks us, he outpaces us. And it's just who he is, right? I mean, some people are just built differently. They are, they're just sort of, they have a different outlook. They have that different, line of sight. And he's just that kind of person where he has that focus, right? And so that's one of the things I would like to emulate. I would say, like, I would like his clarity and focus. And the truth is, and again, I'm going to give you an answer that most people will not give you. That clarity and focus comes through patience, and that patience comes through going through difficult times. There's something that I simply, he laughs about this with me, but oh man, I cannot match that, my father when it comes to numbers at all. Oh, goodness gracious.
Good afternoon, my dear industry fellows. If you have still not subscribed to my channel, please do click the subscribe button for getting the latest industry updates. It's a completely non-commercial activity that we have undertaken in the pandemic for sharing knowledge amongst all my dear colleagues. Click on subscribe now. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the Silver Jubilee Capsule of Series 3. Our guest is none other than Anantshree Chaturvedi, Vice Chairman and CEO, FlexFilms International, logging in from New York, US. Pioneering the flexible packaging industry in India, Uflex is the unchallenged leader. Uflex has made our industry proud, in fact, India proud, to become such a huge Indian MNC. Incorporated in 1985, a multi-billion company, Uflex has manufacturing facilities not only in India, but also overseas, Dubai, Mexico, USA, Poland, Egypt, and Russia. It has new facilities coming up in Nigeria, Hungary, and of course, our own Karnataka. Uflex has clients in over about 140 countries, including the main brand owners. Anant began from grassroots level as a trainee and apprentice in India, Mexico, Poland, Egypt, Dubai, and USA. As they say in the movies, owner ka beta begins from the shop floor. He has been with the organization for over a decade now. Graduated from Babson College with a triple major, Finance, Global Strategic, and Management and Economics. In his school, he was the youngest student body president ever. Vast array of experience starting from the minor age of 15, including his own venture capital firm, which he confounded in college. Hindi में बोलते हैं, पूत के पाँव पालने में दिख जाते हैं. Anant exemplifies beginning young. He's currently in charge of the NAFTA region for the films business. He also looks after the global product stability, R&D, and new product development and HR protocols. He's the chief cultural officer for all standards of operation at Uflex and its group companies. Anant, a very warm welcome to my show, Insights with Nidhi Verma Series 3. I would say, howdy, Anantshree.
But, I'll see them in the Uflex's future today is not going to be as a packaging company. Uflex's future will be as a material science company. And a material science company will have the comfort of being able to handle materials. That comes from being able to handle specialty materials and be able to work with a wide variety of materials.
What is the single unique proposition, Anant? Because you also wear a thinking cap, I know that you would like to build Uflex, as their cutting edge. You're into everything, but what is the one thing that you would like to say, this is the proprietary for Uflex, this is my core strength?
In that same analogy, right? If I talk about what is Uflex's proprietary strength, for us, each one of these divisions, everything that you mentioned, right, are independent profit centers, right? They operate in their own ecosystem. They operate in their own way. We, as sort of general managers of the overall business, spend time, in each business, and we give each business its attention. Some businesses outperform other businesses. So if you look at, our chemicals business, for example, our chemicals business over the last couple of years has had a fantastic performance. And, the leadership there, Rajesh Basin, whose divisions, a lot of our divisions, if you look at it, we're transitioning from, the first generation to the second generation. So a lot of new leadership has stepped up. We're still waiting to see how, those strategies will play out, how those things will play out. So if you ask me what's the proprietary core strength, I would say, the answer to that is it's still evolving. But if you really ask me what I want, so from my perspective as vice chairman of the organization, we have to come to a point, which we are not at that point yet, where these different divisions can co-collaborate and co-create proprietary strength together. Because for the time being, for the last 36 years, these divisions have operated independently, right? So if you've seen products that have come out of Uflex, right, these products are always like film division launches this, aseptic division launches this, chemicals division launches this, zip pouch division will launch this, right? you'll never see, oh, films and engineering has launched this, or, 4 divisions have come together. I think once we come to that point, which we will get to that point in the very near future, that's when you will see the real proprietary stuff come out. That's the exciting stuff that we're working towards.
And right now also with all these verticals, separating silo independently, Uflex is, where is it? I'm just wondering that the synergy when it comes together and the real value it gets unlocked. I think sky will be the limit. It's going to be absolutely over the horizon. Wonderful.
That'll be the next big role.
Absolutely. Anand, in my conferences, we've had the opportunity of you having as a speaker, and everyone, all those 2,000 people of our industry, people loving, you're listening to your views, and you come across as an extremely transparent leader. I personally feel, and I know a lot of other industry people also feel the same. I've not had the opportunity to ask the below questions, which I always wanted to, but my conference doesn't give me the format. This YouTube channel, it does give me, so I'm going to take the liberty there, Anand.
Go ahead.
In your timeline and career graph, when you have planned to move and take, the decision-making role, then the current is also decision-making, but more of the execution. If you see the whole umbrella of Uflex, when have you planned that for yourself?
So, I mean, for myself, to be honest with you, Nidhi, what's interesting is when you really look at a position of, I've learned this over even my short career, right? The real time that I got more authority and more responsibility was the time that I did not want more authority and more responsibility. And the time that I really wanted more authority and responsibility, and I went out and asked for it, I was never given the authority at the time, right? So I learned over time that, do not ask and you should be given, and you ask and you should not be given, And I think it's kind of a general rule that will apply across the industry and across the board. It's not something exclusive to family businesses or industry or anything. But so for me, if I look at my career graph, right, the whole transition, honestly, and it leads into another question that you asked, is Uflex has always been a very professional-led organization, but with a very strong ownership component on the top, right? And that's always provided Uflex its own unique sort of core strength, where a lot of the passion, drive, technical expertise, but also a lot of, responsibility, being able to, risk-taking ability, right, gets dissipated because, you have a strong sort of ownership segment that's on top, and then that drives, a professional segment underneath, which gives, some things like a capacity expansion, something like experimenting with a new machine, something like experimenting with a new product. Just take, for example, what we've done with our liquid packaging division. I mean, we've taken on this huge challenge, and, just in a few years, we're actually hitting like, our full capacity. We're going to be doing like 7.2 billion packs by the end of, our next capacity expansion, which will be done by sometime next year, I think, like sometime middle of next year. So, so those are the kind, so the whole point for me is, how do we keep the pros of the structure that we've created while, taking out the cons, right? So the pros are what I mentioned, right? The cons obviously become that, your growth gets limited because, you cannot decentralize as much if you have a centralized control that's on top, right? And of course, for me, I'll be honest with you, I have been working from day one. And people always laugh, but I've said this externally, I've said this internally. In fact, I was just saying this to our internal auditors the other day, and I kind of threw them off. But for me, I've always worked on the basis of eliminating my own position, right? Because I know that only way for me to grow, right? Only way for me to grow to whatever the next challenge for me will be, right? Will be to eliminate the role that I do today, and to let either this role go to one other person or to several other people, and if that happens, and that's what I encourage in our leadership as well, right? Whenever I talk to anyone that's in a leadership position in the company, right? Whether they're managing one person or they're managing 5,000 people, it doesn't matter. I tell them, listen, look after your people. Make sure that you make them succeed, because only when they are able to step up to your role can you go to the next role, right? And so for us, it's the same challenge here, right? Eventually, I'll tell you, Uflex will, chairman's whole goal will be to transition into, becoming a MLP, paralysis, Celsius bioenzyme recycling expert, right? I mean, for him, I know that one of his missions is now to sort of solve this plastic problem as a whole, right? So for him, that's a big part of why we've developed the products we've developed today, and a big part of what he wants to do in the future, right? As he transitions to that, the company will transition to other things. The management today, me and my brother will transition to other things. Anantshree is also very, very actively involved, obviously, in the business. And then for us, the challenge becomes, how do we decentralize? How do we create the same professional, or if not better, environment that is today, but combine that with the same agility that we have today, the same flexibility, the same risk-taking appetite, and keeping all that while getting rid of some of the legacy situations, the legacy problems, and the other things that inevitably come together. And that's something that happens sort of across the board, right? And different parts of your history, different parts of your evolution give you that opportunity. If I really look at, I'll take a segue here to just tell you, if you look at most, small to medium-sized businesses in India today, I think COVID gave them that opportunity. I saw a lot of my friends and family who run, small to medium-sized businesses. They suffered during COVID significantly, right? Polymers, as I told you, did not suffer. For offering was, how do we keep running and not risk our people? How do we keep running and not risk safety, right? That was the biggest challenge. But for somebody else who's in retail, someone else who's a consumer-facing things, they had a very tough time, right? But one thing that I'm seeing as I'm meeting them or I'm talking to them now is they got rid of a lot of their legacy issues during COVID, right? They got rid of a lot of their legacy costs during COVID, right? I think Uflex will go through a very similar period sometime in the future. And COVID was also a big learning lesson for us in terms of, how many people do we need to operate? How many, what are the things that we're really good at? What were the things that we sort of weren't good at? So it was very eye-opening for us as well as an organization. It's going to be a very, very interesting ride. But for me, the answer to what you're saying is I want to do it as soon as possible. If I could do it in the next 2 years, I would do it in the next 2 years, because, that gives me an opportunity to go and do something else or build maybe some other part of, the business that nobody has, thought about or looked at, or become like Bezos and go to a space flight or something, yeah, right?
Anant, I'm sure, of course, I'm a Piscean, so I like to believe that I have a sixth sense. I'm saying that soon I'm going to be having a session with you where you will be kind of completely setting up something new and completely unheard of. I'm so sure about it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And what you just highlighted a little time earlier on how COVID has kind of re-evaluated everything, forced us to kind of, bring us down to the drawing table again, where we have to leave a lot of our legacy, the way we've done business. So new, leaner, and, more high productivity organizations will evolve. Definitely. Absolutely. And I think, Anantan, what your point of view is that, where you make yourself redundant, you make your team so empowered. That is very relevant because many of the companies, especially in our industry, are all family owned, where, striking the balance between the professional management and the owner management, because I almost like to believe that I almost know all the owners and I almost know all the CEOs. A lot of, there is still a juggle going on there.
Sure.
And I think Uflex is an organization with your thought process, probably will become the cheerleader on how to kind of balance professional management versus the owner management.
Thank you, Nidhi. I mean, for us, to be honest with you, the last thing I'll say is, we don't want to be the role model, but if we end up becoming, we don't mind, because we will take the lead of it, and we are going to do what we need to do. But if I really, explain it to the owners and the professionals that you're addressing right now, it's the choice between growth and maintenance, right? If you want to maintain your business and you want to stay, let's say you have a turnover of 200 crores or 500 crores or 2,000 crores or whatever you have, right? And you want to stay and maintain, and you're happy with where you are right now, and you don't want growth, then you know what? Absolutely, what I am saying is completely invalid for you. Because you don't need to then, change anything. You stay in the same place. Everybody stays in the same role, and you simply go to maintenance mode. You go into the mode of, okay, I'm going to try and maintain my top line, my bottom line, and that's what I'm going to focus on the next 15, 20 years. I'm going to ride this thing out, and after that, I'm going to do whatever I do with the business. But if somebody does make that choice, just remember, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. A rupee today is worth more than a rupee tomorrow. Currencies depreciate, earnings depreciate. 200 crores today will not mean the same 200 crores 5 years from now. 2,000 crores today will not mean the same as 2,000 crores 10 years from now, right? So if you're trying to maintain your top line, your bottom line, whatever you may have it, right? Even if it's a giant one, even if it's 20,000 crores or 50,000 crores, right? And you go out of growth mode and you go into maintenance mode, right? You say, I'm not going to eliminate my position. I'm not going to grow my individuals. I'm not going to be growth oriented. Eventually, you're going to hit a wall. And eventually someone else will come and replace you, right? And some technology, some things, I mean, I can quote you, I'm not going to go into business theory, but, there's companies that you can look just within the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
You can go back all the way back to Kodak and how they missed the digital revolution. You can go back to BlackBerry and how they missed what the iPhone did to the world, So, maintenance is, it's easy to talk about it and it's an easy thing to commit to. And I do see a lot of companies especially in family businesses, commit to maintenance, right? But that's why, there's a big change in how wealth works in India. Every 5-10 years, you see there's a big change in terms of, where the wealth is, I mean, today, a lot of the wealth is in tech and a lot of the wealth is this, before there was a lot of wealth in, large scale commodity industrial businesses, today, a lot of the wealth is in real estate. That has only happened because of what has happened in real estate in India from 1995 to 2015, right? So, so the shape of, income and growth will keep changing. But again, my theory is only valid for people who want to grow. Don't want to grow, maintain, you shouldn't change anything, stay the same. And that's not a bad thing. It'll still last, but in 15, 20 years, you're going to hit a wall, maybe sooner.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I'm sure most of our industry would like to be in the growth arena and not in the satisfied non-appetite arena. I would like to believe our industry
Absolutely.
is made of those guys, right?
Absolutely.
So Anant, the organization's main activity is in India, right? Of course, with your thought process where you want to kind of have the synergy with all units, where you have so many divisions, so many leaders, so many teams. Do you see shifting your base from headquarters to headquarters in India, or once an NY guy, always an NY guy?
No, it's not that. I mean, I only became an NY guy a couple of years ago, right? So I wouldn't call myself an NY guy. But for us, headquarters, I mean, it's again, as we spoke in Nidhi earlier, right? It's about decentralized command. For me, what we're focused on, today we're in 9 global locations. Tomorrow we can be in 12, we can be in 20, we can be in 30, whatever it is, right? Today, 50% of our revenue is outside of India. 50% of our revenue is inside of India. Over the next couple of years, you'll see, 70% of our revenue will be outside of India, 30% will be inside of India. Over the long run, our goal really will become, and it will happen, is that each country will contribute less than 10% to our overall revenue, including India, right? So eventually, we will come to a point where it really it wouldn't matter where headquarters is. Each place will be doing what it's doing for its local environment, for its local economy. It's providing the best value that it can possibly provide with the understanding that it has of its local base, its local knowledge, the use of its local skill set. And then you go from there to a point of, saying, okay, do I choose a headquarter now based on what's the next relevant skill that I want? Do I want a design skill? Do I want a technology skill? Do I want, so there's a reason why Apple is designed in California and made in China, right? Because their best design skill, their best, engineering skill set that they can sort of get is in Cupertino and is in the outside of Silicon Valley, right? If that wasn't the case, they would have shifted their base to Bangalore, or they could, and even though a lot of tech design does happen in Bangalore, and so really good tech design happens in Bangalore. So I'm not discounting Bangalore. I mean, some of the largest companies in the world have design centers in Bangalore, including the IBMs and the Amazons and so many of the world, right? But, your headquarter then really sort of starts to reflect what is the skill set that you want. So if we'll always be very attached to India. I don't think my father will ever want to leave India. And I don't think like India will ever become like an unimportant part of the equation. But in terms of global headquarters, as I said, right, it's a skill set, right? I mean, that you acquire. But India will still be, we'll always be Indian origin. We'll always be Indian at heart, and we'll always sort of have that with us wherever we go. Yeah.
That is in us, right? It's in our blood, right?
Yeah.
The roots are here.
Yeah, plus the food's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. The vibe is excellent. So, my dear audience, here you've heard how big organizations' leadership is thinking in the future growth. They are not still stuck to the geographies inside. They are going extremely global as far as their thinking is also concerned. Now, the interesting question, maybe a little difficult also, Anand.
Oh, sure.
Your father, Ashokji, I'm extremely fond of him, is a very influential leader of our industry, a true innovator, a true veteran. You have hugely big shoes to fill in. You are the vice chairman of our organization. Sure. Everyone knows that, right? The risk-taking appetite of your father is legend. It is absolutely epic. What are the 3 things which you would like to emulate from him? And which are the 2 things which you say, Dad, I'm really sorry, I do not agree with you here? Would you have the liberty to speak that out?
Sure. I'll tell you, Nidhi, honestly, and this answer might surprise you and your audience a little bit, because these are things that maybe a lot of people don't recognize or know about my father. But I would say, when people tell me that what's the number 1 reason for his growth, what's the number 1 reason for who he is, right? And of course, the things you said, in terms of his intelligence, his foresightedness, his ability to, predict where the market is headed and then curtail products to, be in that market segment. Those are all valid. But really, I've seen the one big reason for his growth is that, and this will sound very cliche, but this is actually the truth, but that he's always been a very kind person. right? I've always seen him sort of help people and, be very, regardful. I've never seen him be disloyal to a friend, even if friends have been disloyal to him. I've never seen him sort of walk away from a problem or from helping anyone. And so that's why in his life, when I've seen problems come, they come, but people come up to help, and people come up to, help him solve it because of, the person who he is. And that's, I think, a big, big factor of his growth, right? And that's a nice thing that, I would say I strive to emulate, about him, the second thing I would say that I really sort of, when you say me and my brother have big shoes to fill, honestly, I'll confess to you, I have already given up. I know that I can never, I know that no matter how hard I work, he just outworks us, he outpaces us. And it's just who he is, right? I mean, some people are just built differently. They are, they're just sort of, they have a different outlook. They have that different, line of sight. And he's just that kind of person where he has that focus, right? And so that's one of the things I would like to emulate. I would say, like, I would like his clarity and focus, right? And I'm starting to sort of learn that over time. And the truth is, and again, I'm going to give you an answer that most people will not give you. That clarity and focus comes through patience, and that patience comes through going through difficult times. So as I've become older and I've gone through my share of trials and tribulations, today I know that I have a different level of patience when it comes to dealing with things as opposed to 25-year-old me, as opposed to 30-year-old me, because I have now dealt with a variety of different things that have instilled a little bit more calm and a little bit more patience with me. And so I'm able to distill and focus and come to a little bit more clarity in a little bit more succinct way, as opposed to, even up until, I would say, a couple of months ago, right? Just the evolution changes, because, life keeps happening to you, and you have to, you either roll with the punches or you respond to, to the punches, and you put your best foot forward, So, his focus and his sort of clarity to think through and be focused on what he needs to do, even despite, having chaos sort of around him, that's a thing that I would like to emulate, And the third thing, sort of, I would, of course, like to sort of emulate is, there's something that I simply, he laughs about this with me, but oh man, I cannot match that, my father when it comes to numbers at all. Oh, goodness gracious. He will read about one plant capacity somewhere or some output number somewhere, and he will remember it to the T, and even like 3 weeks later or 6 weeks later or 6 months later, you're talking and he'd be like, "Nain, that capacity was that on that day," and things, and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna have to check on that, and then like, I don't have that. I mean, I'm okay with numbers and I'm okay with math, but I don't have that memory of like remembering like, oh, what the output number was on January 17th of 2017,
Oh my God.
Yeah, how he has that. And my brother has that, to be honest with you. My brother is the same. My brother has that ability. Oh, I don't have that ability. And I even try. Like, if I have to remember something, I write it down, or I put it as a note on my phone,
And then two in the family are okay. We can we can expand our skills somewhere else.
Now, I would say 3 of the things that I, that I can't emulate. It's not so much that I disagree with, it's just that I know that those things are sort of, I will confess to you, Nidhi, one is they're out of my capacity, right? So one, I will tell you very, very clearly, touch wood, and this is in a good way, right? I mean, physicality is out of my capacity, right? Right? I mean, I know for a fact there's no diet I can go to, there's no amount of cardio or weightlifting I can do. At least with me, I'm more based on my mother's side, my Nani Hal side, right? I'm just a big build guy. There's no way I'm going to be as lean, as fast as him. I'm designed for a different skill set in my life, and then it's just, it's just the way it is, so that I would say is one thing that I simply cannot emulate, right? The second thing I would say is, again, like for us, we're moving from first generation to second generation, right? One of the things that is very, very difficult, what happens in first generation, second generation, is adaptation of technology, right? The divide between the standard projects and the dream projects, right? So if you look at most businesses, and let's talk about, even if I don't talk about Uflex, let's talk about another business that's a fantastic business that you will know very well and things, but if you talk about Reliance, right? Till the founder was alive and involved and, part of the business, Reliance was fantastic and they did a lot of great projects, but they were still, in that petrochemical, petro chain, this whole Reliance that we see today, the digital Reliance, the consumer-based Reliance, right? The telecom Reliance, the retail Reliance. I mean, somebody was telling me yesterday that Reliance Retail does a business of a couple of, tens of billions of dollars a year in India today. And that transition has been the last 10, 12-year story, I mean, that's amazing, right? If you look at it. But these dream projects only really come on board when there's a strategic shift that happens, right? So you have to wait for that strategic shift to happen whenever. So that's the imagination. Sometimes, you have to manage it and contain it, and you have to do whatever you can within the validity of your imagination. But it's a balancing act that you have to play, right? And like Chairman has a fantastic imagination, right? But it's focused towards polymers. It's focused towards packaging, right? And it's not going to break away from that now. It's going to be in that, and for us, I think as an organization, tomorrow, as we transition to a material science company, we're always going to be at our heart, involved with packaging, but, a lot of our businesses have other capabilities, right? Like, for example, like our chemicals division, right? It makes inks and adhesives, but a lot of people will not know. We also are the largest, or one of the largest manufacturers of polyurethane soles for shoes in India, right? So like our chemicals divisions does that. Not a lot of people will know that about us, right? But it's not something that people will know when they associate Uflex, but it is part of our, it's a part of our product offering, So those things will start to emerge as you see in the future. Yeah.